The rain had started as a drizzle when the car stuttered. I thought it was just a hiccup, a momentary glitch. But the dashboard lights flickered, and within seconds, the engine went quiet. My stepson tried to restart it, the wipers dragging slowly across the windshield as if mocking us. When it became clear the car wouldn't move another inch, we sat in silence, listening to the rain grow heavier. It was already past 9. The road was deserted, flanked by fields and dark silhouettes of trees. My husband had stayed behind in the city, something about unfinished work, as usual. I called him, more out of habit than hope. No answer. My stepson dialed a mechanic, but it would take hours for anyone to reach us. He looked at me with quiet patience, the kind of calm that unsettles you when you're used to someone else's indifference. A flickering sign glowed faintly ahead, a small roadside inn. It looked barely alive, one of those places where time feels suspended. He grabbed our bags and offered to carry mine, brushing off my protest with a small smile. The rain was cold, relentless. By the time we reached the motel, my hair clung to my neck and my hands trembled. The man at the counter barely looked up. "Only one room left," he muttered, sliding the key across the desk. For a moment, I hesitated. One room. My stepson didn't. "It's fine," he said softly, taking the key before I could respond. The room smelled faintly of detergent and damp air. 2 beds, 1 window, and a heater that coughed to life after a few tries. I stood near the window, watching rain smear the glass. He placed my bag on the chair and turned on the small lamp between the beds. The light was warm, almost kind. "Sorry about the drive," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I should have checked the car earlier." "It's not your fault," I replied, though I wasn't sure why I sounded so gentle. Maybe because he looked guilty. Maybe because I wasn't used to someone apologizing to me without a hint of defensiveness. He disappeared into the bathroom for a few minutes, then came out with a towel. "Here," he said, handing it to me. I took it, our fingers brushing slightly. It was nothing, just contact, but something about the moment lingered, stretching longer than it should. I dried my hair, trying to steady the rhythm of my breathing. The heater began to fill the room with a low hum. I sat on the edge of the bed, glancing at him as he leaned against the wall, phone in hand, calling the mechanic again. His voice was calm, reassuring. My husband used to sound like that once. We talked while waiting for updates that never came. About small things, the traffic, his job, the trip. His laughter came easily, unguarded. I'd forgotten how that sounded. He mentioned how his father never really slowed down, how everything with him was a plan or a task. I smiled faintly, because I knew that truth better than anyone. The rain deepened outside, a steady drumming against the glass. I realized how quiet the world felt inside that room, away from all expectations, all routines. I caught myself watching him more than I should have, his gestures, his focus when he spoke, the way his words carried a softness rarely found in this family. When I turned away, I noticed my reflection in the window. Tired eyes, faint lines around my mouth, a woman pretending to be unaffected. I told myself it was just exhaustion. A night in an unfamiliar place, nothing more. He offered to take the floor if I wanted the bed to myself. I told him not to be ridiculous, that the beds were separate. Still, he hesitated before agreeing. That hesitation, small, polite, unnecessary, somehow made the space between us feel smaller. The clock ticked quietly. The rain didn't stop. I could hear the faint sound of his breathing once he lay down, steady and rhythmic, a sound that should have been comforting but wasn't. My mind wandered to my husband, probably asleep in his office chair, unaware or uninterested in where I was tonight. I turned off the lamp, but sleep didn't come. I lay in the dark, aware of every sound, the heater, the rain, the distant hum of a passing truck. And beneath it all, the knowledge that I wasn't just stranded by a broken car. I was stranded in something far more complicated. I told myself morning would fix everything. Cars can be repaired, misunderstandings fade, nights like these are forgotten. But even as I closed my eyes, I knew that wasn't true. Some nights don't fade. They stay, quiet, unspoken, but alive in memory long after they. Morning came slowly, grey and hesitant, as though unsure it wanted to touch what the night had left behind. The rain had stopped, leaving a thin mist outside the window. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the faint light crawling through the curtains. The silence was different now, heavier, awkward in a way it hadn't been before. He was already up, standing near the small dresser, folding his jacket, avoiding my eyes. "Mechanic's on his way," he said. His voice was calm, careful, as if afraid of breaking something fragile between us. I nodded. Good. Neither of us mentioned the night. We didn't have to. It hovered there, silent but alive, filling every pause. I went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and told myself to breathe. My reflection looked the same, but I felt changed, like something inside me had been quietly rearranged. When I came out, he was by the window, staring at the road. "Coffee?" he asked, lifting the cheap motel kettle. "Sure," I said, though I didn't want any. He poured 2 cups, the faint aroma rising between us. We sat on opposite beds, sipping slowly, pretending normalcy could be restored with caffeine and small talk. "How's the car?" I asked. "Mechanic says it's a minor issue," he replied. "Shouldn't take long." "That's good," I said, too quickly. He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, it is." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable anymore. It pressed against us, reminding me of the thin line we hadn't crossed but had still managed to blur. I could feel guilt settling in, heavy and quiet, like the fog outside. When the mechanic finally called, he stepped out to meet him. I sat alone, hands wrapped around the lukewarm cup, staring at the empty space he'd left behind. My thoughts wandered to my husband, how he never asked where I went, what I did, how I felt. How absence had become our language. And how strange it felt to be seen, even for one night, by someone who wasn't supposed to. He came back with the keys in hand. "Car's fixed," he said. I nodded. "That's good news." He hesitated, looking at me as if searching for something. Permission, perhaps, or understanding. "We should probably head out," he added softly. "Yes," I said, though I wasn't ready for the morning to end. We packed in silence. I folded my things with deliberate care, as if order could erase what chaos had built inside me. He carried the bags out first. I lingered for a moment, letting my eyes drift across the room, the 2 unmade beds, the empty cups, the faint trace of warmth still in the air. It already felt like a memory. At the counter, the motel clerk handed me the receipt without looking up. The rain had left puddles across the gravel lot, each one reflecting the dull sky above. He opened the passenger door for me, just as he had the night before. Small, unnecessary gestures, yet they mattered now, in ways they shouldn't. As he started the car, the engine hummed back to life, smooth and obedient. The road ahead was wet but clear. He drove carefully, eyes fixed on the highway. I watched the world pass by, the blur of trees, the grey horizon, and wondered how something so ordinary could follow a night that felt anything but. I wanted to say something, to break the quiet before it swallowed us whole. "Last night," I began, but the words faded before they formed. He glanced at me, then back at the road. "You don't have to explain," he said quietly. "Nothing happened." He was right. Nothing did. But everything had. I turned toward the window. "Still," I whispered, "I don't want it to change things." "It won't," he said. But his voice didn't sound certain. We stopped for breakfast at a roadside diner, pretending it was any other morning. The waitress poured coffee, smiled mechanically, unaware of the tension stretching thin across our table. He stirred his drink endlessly, eyes fixed on the cup. I tried to eat but couldn't. The silence between us was louder than any conversation we could have had. When the bill came, he reached for it first. "I've got it," he said. "Thank you." He looked up then, finally meeting my eyes. There was no accusation there, no regret, just something unspoken, something we both understood couldn't be named. On the way back to the car, he walked beside me, close but not close enough to touch. The morning air was cold, sharp. Before we got in, he said quietly, "Thanks for talking last night." I nodded, unable to find words. As the car rolled forward, I looked in the side mirror. The motel had already disappeared behind a bend. But the memory of it, the stillness, the rain, the closeness, stayed, like a quiet secret pressing against my chest. I told myself I'd forget it. That life would return to its usual rhythm. But deep down, I knew better. Some moments don't vanish. They linger in silence, just out of reach, waiting to remind you of what you almost let happen. The city appeared in fragments, billboards, grey buildings, the familiar rush of people who never looked up. The hum of traffic felt louder than usual. He drove the rest of the way in silence, both hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed ahead. I watched him from the corner of my eye, the morning light outlining his profile. Neither of us spoke. Words now felt dangerous, fragile things that could undo what little composure we'd gathered since leaving that motel.